Hey there, Cambrian Park Church family. I hope you're doing well. This is your midweek video update. It's been a few weeks since I've filmed the video for our video announcements. So I hope you've been having a good June. And we're approaching 4th of July weekend, obviously, coming up here this upcoming weekend. I wanted to say a special thank you to our guest preacher from this past Sunday. Ben Jones did a great job sharing a message from Philippians chapter 3. So I don't know if you had a chance to either, if you're here in person or on Zoom, or if you've had a chance to watch the sermon recording on YouTube. I want to encourage you to do that if you were not around this past Sunday. But a special thank you to Ben for sharing God's Word with us this past Sunday. We're going to continue our sermon series this upcoming Sunday in Genesis, and so I want to encourage you to come and be a part of things in person at 9:30. We'll also have a Zoom link available as well, as we do every week, and I would love to have you join us this upcoming Sunday for our service at 9:30. Hey, I wanted just to give a quick thought here before we wrap things up this morning. Our church board has been going through this book. It's called Discovering Our Spiritual Identity, and the author is Trevor Hudson. It's really a book on discipleship and spiritual formation. It's a great book. We've been working through it together as a church board, and we were in one of the chapters this last night at our meeting, which is really a chapter focused on holiness and what does it mean to become holy people. And so we talked a little bit about this, and the reality is that the word holy and holiness kind of has some misconstrued meanings in our context today. It's not a word that we use very much, and a lot of times if we hear that word, it's a lot of times attributed to negative connotations or negative images. So we would call, maybe a holy person would be somebody who's completely different than us, is on a whole different wavelength of connection with God. Or maybe it's a person who kind of ascribes holiness to themselves. It's kind of a holier than thou attitude. Or we look at it kind of negatively, that they try to portray themselves as this self-righteous individual. And the reality is that the word holy, it actually simply means to be set apart. And holiness is really the action of living a set apart type of life. And so the question then remains, well, what are we set apart for? We can be set up, we can actually be holy in our worship of ourselves. So we can be holy people in that context because we can be set apart as people focused on our own rights, our own needs, our own desires as the primary motivation for our lives, or we can be set apart entirely to God for His purposes. And so God's creative design for us is that we would be set apart to Him. And that doesn't mean that we're going to be, always do the right things all the times, that we're never going to ever make a mistake, that we're going to be perfect and never cause problems or never deal with sin. That's not really what's intended here, what this really means. Holiness is an attitude of our hearts that we have made a decision to align ourselves with Jesus and say, whatever happens, I want my life to be completely given over to you for your purposes. I live to serve you. I exist because of you. And so I want to learn more about what it means to die to myself and my own interests in order to be free to live completely as your child and to do your will in this world. And so that's really the essence of what holiness is. It's not a bunch of rules that we're supposed to be following necessarily, and a bunch of things we're supposed to do or not do. Actually, the book helps us understand that the primary fruit of holiness is learning to experience and live more of a life more of agape love, which is really that God love, that unconditional sacrificial love from God. So that is a primary fruit of holiness. So instead of thinking about holiness traits being a bunch of activities that you do or don't do, instead think proactively that to be holy is to be someone who's growing and learning and living in God's love for you and being able to have glimpses of demonstrating that among other people. Sacrificial, unconditional love. And so I hope that's helpful for you and informative for you. One of the things that Trevor Hudson talks about in the book is how to develop this lifestyle of becoming holy, living a holy lifestyle. And he really talks about these two fundamental realities that we need to grow in our relation. We need to grow in our holiness, quote unquote, by becoming more present with Jesus in our lives on a day in and day out basis. So to develop that intimacy with Him so that his Spirit is able to do more and more of the transforming work in us. And as the Spirit of God as we're being set apart for God's Spirit to do his work in us, then what we find is that the fruit of agape love becomes more developed in us, and we desire to care and compassion more for the needs of those around us. So truly, when we think about holiness, I want you to not think about a bunch of rules or a bunch of things that you're supposed to do or not do necessarily, but instead, when we call ourselves people that are becoming holy, it's that we're increasingly becoming more and more set apart for God to do what he wants in us, that his Spirit is transforming us to look and to live more like Jesus, and that our lives demonstrate the fruit of love in all situations and at all times. And we know we have a long way to go to get there because we're not perfect in that. But that is God's desire for us. And so I pray that you and that me and that our church, that we would be people that would be set apart for God, that we would say, Jesus, I'm entirely yours. Would you take my life and use it however you want to use it? And would the fruit of that life that is set apart for you, would the fruit of that life show itself as a fruit of agape, sacrificial, unconditional, death to self love, to be given away on behalf of the needs of others around us. That's the kind of church we want to be. We want to be a church for our community, a church that lives and loves and operates in compassion and care for those around us, for our neighbors, for those that are hurting in our world. That's the kind of church that we want to be, the kind of people God has called us to be. So I hope that's an encouragement to you, that little devotional thought. And I hope you have a great rest of your day, and we'll look forward to seeing you on Sunday as we continue in our series in Genesis, okay? Have a great rest of your day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.